Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You want to go do a podcast?
Sure.
Jump in.
Ladies and gentlemen,
And puppies.
Barbies and Kens, Chelseas of all ages, and everyone else, including puppies. Welcome to Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast. I'm your host, John, and with me I have my wonderful co-host. Can you dial down the Enthusapalooza until we're done, Jay? Catname and brackets and I are feeling a little woozy.
Okay, now I see what you were doing there.
For those of you just joining us, we are a podcast about Barbie movies. Every week we watch one of the straight-to-DVD animated Barbie movies, and we rate its story, characters, animation, voice acting, and music to see how it stacks up. This week we'll be talking about the 34th animated Barbie movie, Barbie and Her Sisters in a Puppy Chase.
Yeah. There are Barbie, there are sisters, there are puppies, and there is a chase.
And that's a self-explanatory film.
Yeah, maybe one of the more accurate titles, as in it tells you everything you need to know about the movie.
Yeah. I mean, chase is a bit much.
I mean, yeah.
It's more of a, I don't know.
Series of unfortunate events.
Yes, with like a 2-second chase in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then it's a catch up.
Barbie and her sisters in a puppy catch up.
And then it turns into a race against time. But
Oh,
yeah.
that would be Barbie and the Race Against Time.
Yes.
Anyway, this was released October 18, 2016, and it's the fourth Barbie and her sisters movie. Yeah, starting with Perfect Christmas and Ponytail and Great Puppy Adventure, and then this is pretty much a direct sequel to Great Puppy Adventure. And it's there's an interesting story behind its production.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two credited directors here. They're credited separately, but we have Conrad Helton, who's sort of the main director, and then Ken Cunningham, who is credited as the pre-production director, because this was originally going to be developed by Arc Productions, but Arc Productions actually went bankrupt in August of 2016, so production was moved over to Rainmaker. So all of the people who are working on the film under Arc Productions are credited as having done the pre-production work, and then everyone at Rainmaker is credited as having sort of finished the film.
Mm-hmm.
So there's essentially two creative teams that worked on this in separate production studios, which I don't know, you can't really tell beyond like the animation style being different from the Rainmaker style.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. And Arc Productions was eventually acquired by Jamfeld Productions, I think they're called. But yeah, there was a short while where they were bankrupt, and so Rainmaker took over the production of this film. And yeah, it's written by Amy Wolfram, returning from the last Puppy, Barbie and her sisters movie, and Casey Arnold, who's been doing a lot of these. She I believe, when I made a list of who had the most writing credits, she worked on almost as many as Elise Allen, who was working earlier in the Barbie movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have production design by Alexandra Kavalova and art direction by Kavalova, Renata Marchand, and Chris Souza. They're all people who have worked on Barbie movies elsewhere. So, and then music is by Steven Argula, who composed a lot of the Max Steel and Monster High movies.
Ooh.
So I'm surprised that he hasn't done any of these Barbie movies before, and he doesn't have any after this, I believe, because he seems to work a lot with Rainmaker. And then we have original songs that were developed by the Math Club. So this was an interesting thing where it sent me on a bit of a rabbit hole, because the Math Club is a company that creates and remixes songs for movies, TV, commercials, and they've worked on almost every other Barbie movie from Spy Squad onward.
Hmm.
Even the more recent Barbie movies they have worked on. And then they've also worked on a ton of other stuff like Crazy Rich Asians, Ride Along 2, WandaVision. Their website lists hundreds of other credits on everything from Booksmart to Mare of Easttown to Jumanji to Spider Man Homecoming. And so sometimes it'll be like a full song that they create. Sometimes it'll be like in Shang-Chi where they do karaoke.
Hmm.
That was the karaoke was song version of the song was created by the Math Club.
Okay.
And yeah, they were also behind one of my favorite tongue-in-cheek remixes, which is the My Heart Will Go On remix from Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar.
Hmm.
And you hear about like 5 seconds of it in the movie, but they created the full remix that you can listen to. And that's often what they're doing. They're creating things that are heard for a very short amount of time.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, did you look at all into their website?
I looked, I saw they did stuff for Godzilla. I don't know when that was used, but they did something.
Yeah. And on the website it actually will say like this is what we did. Sometimes they'll have like the the song that they made. Sometimes it'll just be like, oh, we did like the music for the first 10 seconds of the trailer, or created like, but like it's that kind of stuff. They're kind of a company that just does whatever music needs to be done for
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty much everyone who makes movies. So yeah, I thought it was interesting looking at that, and they did the music for a lot of these Barbie movies coming up, and some of the ones that we've already talked about. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, the story here follows Barbie and her sisters, and they travel to an island which is ambiguously in Hawaii or the South Pacific. They don't specifically say. I think they just call it the island. It doesn't even have a name.
Yeah.
Um, but they're there for Chelsea's dance competition.
Why?
I mean,
Like, why go all the way to this island for a competition? And the competition's like, I don't know, 20 people.
yeah, it's basically just like a pageant. I don't know. Barbie has some dough. I think it's partially just like, hey, let's go on vacation, and it just happens to be that there's a dance show that they can do.
Yeah, but one of their friends also travels down there. Some people brought their horses as well.
I think the horses were already on the island.
Well, they were, but the horses were doing something.
Yeah, this is the where everything starts to go wrong is Barbie takes her sisters to see this horse dancing show
Uh-huh.
and let the puppies wander off on their own, which ends up happening that the puppies end up in the back of this car that happens to belong to the siblings who are putting on this horse show.
Uh-huh.
And after the show, Stacy notices that the puppies are missing just as the car starts driving away with the puppies inside.
Mm-hmm.
And Barbie tries to chase them down in a golf cart, but gets stuck under a tree arch. Um, so the sisters are forced to camp out for the night. And then meanwhile, the puppies are having a wonderful time hanging out with the show poodle Archibald III
Mm-hmm.
and these dancing horses. They're on the beach and camping out, and
Learning how to
Barbie and her
surf.
sisters are like cowering from the rain and just not having a good time.
No.
And then in the morning, Barbie and her sisters have to hike over a mountain to find help,
Mm-hmm.
and there are many misadventures along the way. And then eventually they get to this tourist town, and it's off season, so there aren't any people around, except for one person who runs the car rental place. So they are able to rent a camper van and set off for the beach to find the puppies. But it breaks down right before they get to the beach. Luckily, they're close enough to walk the rest of the way. But when they get there, the puppies aren't there. So Chelsea is at this point very worried that she will be too late to perform in the competition. So she and Barbie have a heart to heart, and it's all about like, well, sometimes you don't get what you want to do, but maybe there's a silver lining here.
Uh-huh.
And then the puppies show up riding surfboards,
Yeah.
and the horse traders offer to give the girls a ride to the competition since their van is broken down in the middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they get to this bridge that's been washed out because
From what?
nothing could go well in this movie.
Yeah. Like
And
it's not. How's it washed out? The bridge is just broken.
it was the storm from the night before.
It wasn't much of a storm.
Well, apparently it was because it washed out two separate bridges.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, luckily the horses in the back of this trailer are able to jump over the bridge so that the sisters are able to ride all the way to the competition. They get lost along the way, but they do arrive just as it's ending.
Who thought it's like, huh? Let's give our horses to these girls and let the horses do this death-defying stunt across this broken bridge with children on them, with puppies.
Yeah, why not leave the puppies in the van?
Or just not do that with your precious horses that you imported from America.
Yeah. Anyway, at the competition, the MC makes an exception and lets Chelsea perform. And at first, Chelsea is struggling with the choreography until one of the horses gets on stage to help her out. And then they are joined by all of the other characters in the movie. And Lindsay, who was the one who originally won the competition, is so impressed that she decides to give up her first place spot for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we have to dive into that ending right now.
Oh, the ending really tanks the film for me. I mean, the film is
Yeah.
already bad, but the ending.
Yeah, they've been building the whole time to this sort of the real treasure was the friends we made along the way.
Uh-huh.
And the movie actually puts in the work for that ending. Like we're leading up to it with things like Barbie and Chelsea talking on the beach about how like even bad situations have a silver lining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that means that when we get to the ending, Chelsea doesn't need to win the competition for the movie to have a happy ending.
No.
Because she gets up on stage and she has a good time, and it's like she should have been disqualified for having other people on stage with her.
Well, she should have been disqualified for being like months late.
Yeah.
But let her perform just to
Yeah.
show off.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, having these other characters join in the routine when the routine should be about you. Honestly, no. All of those characters took away from Chelsea's moment. It's like, let's just watch Archibald. But this is Chelsea's competition.
Yeah. And you see here's the thing, I like that as a almost like a Little Miss Sunshine ending, which Little Miss Sunshine is a very similar movie, though executed a bit better, where it's like a road trip and they're all going to this competition and everything goes wrong, and then at the end they get to the competition and the judges are not happy with the way I forget what her name is, she's played by Abigail Breslin, but they aren't happy with the way she's dancing and are trying to pull her off stage, and then her whole family hops on stage and starts dancing with her. And it's like, even though they lose the competition and get kicked out of the building, it still feels like a happy ending because, you know, it's this family connecting and having this moment together.
Chelsea should have lost.
Yeah, here
just on the
like,
basis of she messed up a lot in the beginning of her number.
Yeah, here it's like you have that moment of like, oh, everyone's on stage and they're having a good time and the audience is even loving it. And it should end with like, well, you did great, Chelsea, but like you weren't
this
here
other
in
girl
time.
tap danced on her hands.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, Chelsea. You don't get first place, but you got to have this great moment.
Mm-hmm. Have a hula.
Yeah, just like something. This would have worked so well. And I almost wonder if there's a version of the script lying around where that is the ending, where it's like, sorry, you got disqualified, but you still got to perform your dance, and that's the silver lining. Instead of this Lindsay who put in a bunch of work and was there on time,
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oh, I liked the dancing dog enough to give up my trophy.
Uh-huh.
Which
Oh,
Archibald III is a wonderful dog, and yes, he deserves praise for his dancing, even though it was terrible. But
sure. Yeah.
don't give up your trophy, Lindsay.
No. This is I don't know what this movie is.
You
It
see, I up until the ending, it was kind of working for me.
really.
Yeah, we'll get into it, but I think yeah, the ending is just like they want to have the happy ending, the sort of unambiguously happy ending, rather than I think the deeper message of like it doesn't matter if you win, it matters that you had a good time with your family. But no, they gotta. This is Mattel. You gotta have the wrap it all up in a nice
Yeah.
bow.
Like as a sequel to the first puppy film, this is kind of lame
Okay,
because
as like a
the first one you had like a treasure hunt,
yeah,
and this was something you had from the beginning. Here it's just the puppies got lost, but nobody's really worried because we know who has the puppies and they're really nice people.
yeah,
And the puppies aren't like, oh no, they're just having a good time. They're surfing, hanging out with Archibald.
yeah.
I
Archibald III, excuse you.
yes, yeah, yes. Sorry, sorry. I should know this. I'm a third as well. Uh, but like, yeah, this is one of the first Barbie films to not have any villain. Any
Yeah,
villain. I think we
not
need
even
a
like
Corella,
yeah,
or just like an old man who hates puppies, who winds up with the puppies and has to learn how to love puppies. It's not great, but it's something.
yeah,
Because
or
the puppies
maybe
don't do anything but
yeah,
surf.
maybe have Archibald III be more of a more of like a I
Slave
don't like
trader.
these. No, no, just like have him be a bit meaner, as like, oh, I don't like these are children. I don't like these children invading my space.
Yeah, but we
And then
had that
over the
with
course,
Jack, the last film. The old dog.
the old dog,
That was
yeah,
just
but
wanting the nap.
he was in like two scenes.
You're right.
I think you could have done something there, but I think the low stakes do also allow for a more character driven story where we get a lot of time seeing the sisters and how they interact. And
Yeah, but I also think you need a little more of a plot than just.
yeah, I would agree. I think it's both a good and a bad thing.
For me, it's just mostly disappointing. I struggled just watching this film. I just couldn't stay with it. Like I just kept
Yeah.
getting distracted, wanting to do other things. I was like, this film. Like,
I wonder if you take the puppies out of it, how
no,
that
it would be the same because nothing's happening.
well the thing
Sure,
that
they're
is
moving
happening
along, but like,
the thing that is happening is you're getting to know the sisters and their dynamic. And that's where I think like this movie was a lot more solidly written than I expected. And I would chalk a lot of that up to Amy Wolfram just knows how to write interesting characters and
sure,
dynamics where like this is so well balanced compared to the other um Barbie and her sisters movies, besides the last one, which Amy Wolfram also wrote, where we're getting a strong sense of who each of the sisters are as individuals and then their dynamics within the group. And that's where
sure.
like the plot is not as important as the characters. And that's why the plot is a bit circular. It is constantly like, okay, here's another obstacle. Because with each obstacle, we're seeing the characters interact and grow. And it's leading towards a very specific point, which I'll talk about in the character section,
Mm-hmm.
that I think is one of the more interesting character choices that any of these movies have done. But at the same time, it gets a little bit ridiculous. I think by the time the engine on the camper van failed, I was like, okay, I'm just like done.
Yeah.
And then
No.
there's like 5 things that go wrong after that.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. I feel like that this is just two different stories for like 20-minute episodes. One episode about the puppies, one episode about Chelsea getting to her dance. But they just combined them and just stretched it out. And it's just not great.
Yeah, the puppies are even more superfluous to this one than they were in the last movie.
Yeah, they don't do anything except get in
No.
trouble.
Yeah.
Even then.
Yeah. I don't know. The elements that I like are so closely tied with the elements that I don't like that it's like I don't think I can fully untangle them.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the ending. The ending should be better.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that this is just too boringly basic of a film.
And I
This
don't
is a whole
yeah.
movie of just this.
Here's the thing, from a plot perspective I agree. From a character perspective, I think we're getting something that none of the Barbie movies before have quite done.
I didn't really find the character stuff that interesting. It's
Okay.
a lot of the same that we've seen before.
Yeah, I think it gets to a certain point that we'll talk about in the character section because I
Mm-hmm.
want to hold that card for a second. But
Okay.
I don't know. I found the sisters to be more compelling in how they are portrayed here than especially the first two Barbie and her sisters movies. And the fact that so much of this is like digging into how they interact and what role they play in the group and
Mm-hmm.
how maybe those roles are like what that means. So yeah, I still have a lot of issues with the story
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the way it is repetitive and the way the plot is low stakes in a way that both makes it character focused and really hurts the momentum. So yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's doing things intentionally that are interesting, but it's making sacrifices for like basic things like moving the plot forward in an interesting way. It's just like it's more interested in the characters than the plot.
Yeah, initially I had it at a 3, but with the ending being just such a bad move, I brought it down to 2.8.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I initially had it at a 3.5, but yeah, that ending is just ruins what could have been an interesting moment.
Right.
Now, the characters here, we have Barbie here is gets to a point that we haven't ever seen her get to before. Where throughout this whole movie she is Barbie. She is the unending force of optimism.
Mm-hmm.
She has this responsibility to her sisters and she never shows her fear or her doubt. She always has a backup plan, always is pushing forward, never stops, never questions anything. She's just like, okay, we gotta go. I gotta make sure Chelsea gets to her competition on time. I gotta find these puppies. And she also she's always ready with like a smile to try and make everyone feel better. And then we get to this point where it's like they've been on this island for 2 days now, and everything's gone wrong, and they're riding the horses and they take a wrong turn, and they end up back at the park where she made her first big mistake of, I mean, technically the first big mistake was her letting the puppies wander free.
Mm-hmm.
She sees her first big mistake as even going to the park in the first place, whereas I think her big mistake was trying to take the shortcut through the tree. But the point is, she is reminded of everything she's done wrong this entire trip, and she just breaks down and admits that she just doesn't have any ideas left, and that this whole time she has been just as worried and scared as her sisters, but she's been hiding it because she is, she's supposed to be the kind, clever, and brave one. And 34 movies in, this is probably the lowest we have ever seen Barbie, where, like, yeah, she is overwhelmed by everything that is on her shoulders. And this is what I've been wanting to see from specifically this iteration of her character since Perfect Christmas, where we got hints of this, but sort of this like responsibility that's weighing on her, and how does that
Mm-hmm.
impact her as a person. And yeah, this is the breaking point for her. um and then that the solution to this is Barbie's sisters reassure her, like, you should have been telling us that you were afraid as well. And then the solution ends up being this constellation, which was something that Barbie had pointed out to her sisters to help them feel safer early in the movie, and that sort of comes back. Yeah, this is why I think the plot is interesting, because it's all building to this point. It's getting Barbie to the point of breaking down and then having to sort of pick herself back up with the help of her sisters. So yeah, I just thought that was like one of the more interesting things we've seen in 34 Barbie movies.
Yeah. Well, with most of these character points, by the time we got to these deep moments, I kind of zoned out because I was
Yeah.
just so disinterested with what was going on.
Yeah, I think it's an endurance test to get to this point.
Yeah.
And that is again where the plot maybe somewhat fails this movie,
Mm-hmm.
is that we have this really interesting idea, and we even get hints of it earlier on. Um but we get to this really interesting point with Barbie's character that, like, yeah, again, it's something that I've wanted to see from Barbie as a character since the beginning, of like, is the kindness, the cleverness, and the braveness, is that just an automatic thing, or does she have to work for it? Are those things that she is actively putting on? And at what point are those things no longer helpful? And yeah, it's just a complexity that I found really interesting, especially in a movie that isn't, besides this, particularly complex. Yeah, I don't know. It was refreshing to see, but I can see how if you were out of the movie by this point, that wouldn't stand out to you. And I have seen criticisms online of people say this is not what Barbie's supposed to be. Barbie isn't supposed to have a breakdown. But I don't know. I think it's the most interesting thing to happen with this character.
Well, from a creator's perspective, yeah, but
Yeah.
story
It's
perspective.
yeah. It's the kind of thing that I think Mattel has avoided letting any of these movies do, because you want to have a very specific view of Barbie. as the older sister who always knows what to do.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. I found it so interesting that I may be being a little bit easier on this movie than I would be otherwise.
Yeah, I guess it's also because just looking back at how many films we've gotten and just how many very much more complex plots we've been given, that just
Yeah.
having something just so basic and simple and uninteresting. I've also just been noticing that a lot of these films just take so long to even get to a plot.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one is not ever in a hurry, which
No.
I think benefits a moment like this where we're working towards this place. How can we break Barbie down to the point where she admits the fear that she feels inside?
Hmm.
The fear that has been there since Nutcracker, but that has always been under the surface. Potentially. That's my read of it. But yeah, it is like the plot that it takes to get there is just, yeah. So anyway, moving on. Skipper, she's the cynic of the group,
Yeah.
which fits well with how she's been characterized before.
I'm a bit disappointed with Skipper because
Okay.
they once again brought her back at the beginning of the film to her having unlearned everything she's been learning in the last few films with
Yeah.
her technology. The very last film, she learned to not rely on her technology, and it ends with her writing stuff down because you don't know when you might need it. Here, she's like, "What? No technology? What the heck is this? A map?"
Yeah. That bothered me less cuz I think in this movie the tech is pretty much completely sidelined. So for me the things that stuck out more about her are her sort of fear and hesitation at every point. But yeah, she definitely has not learned in any of these movies.
No, it's worse specifically for this film because this is specifically a sequel to the
Yeah,
last one, unlike the other ones, which are ambiguous.
yeah. And I think part of that is like, I praise the writers for a lot of the stuff that they've done here. I think there is that bias of like, oh, technology is bad for you. And there isn't any more nuance in that. And so they keep repeating the same arc because it's like, oh, technology, it's still bad.
I don't know what to do with Skipper otherwise.
Yeah. They shoehorn in like a, oh, she doesn't have her phone subplot into all of these.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think what saves her characterization here is again her dynamics with the other characters, especially Stacy. She and Skipper have this contrast where Stacy's the adventurous, the athletic one, and then Skipper's like the more reserved and yeah. I think their interactions work really well in how they contrast each other, especially now that Stacy finally gets more to do. Um, she's almost keeping them going as much as Barbie is
Hmm.
because she's just so fearless about everything. And yeah, she's always the one like, oh, here's a zip line. We don't know if it's safe. Oh, look, Stacy went and did it, and it was fine. So yeah, I like that she had more to do in that her characterization here. She's kind of almost the secondary leader of the sisters.
Hmm.
And then yeah, Chelsea has the big arc of the movie, besides maybe Barbie's sort of. Though Barbie's arc isn't an arc so much as it is a revelation about her character. Whereas Chelsea, she's desperately excited and also nervous for her performance. And so she has to learn both the confidence in her own abilities and the patience to live in the moment and see the silver lining in a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
But again, her arc is really undercut by that ending.
Yeah.
Where she gets everything she wanted at the beginning of the movie. Anything to add on any of the sisters?
No. No.
Yeah.
I could see that they were having an arc of their own, but I just didn't really care to pay too much attention.
Yeah, and I guess that's the downside of the way the plot is slower and more character focused, is it's more difficult to keep people's attention. And like there are some really great moments, but
It
you have
also
to be
depends on the settings that we're in.
yeah.
I generally don't like island adventures,
Okay.
so already I'm
And
like,
this is we've talked about in the last few episodes of like every show has to have their spy episode and their superhero episode, and the island episode is another one that's like
yeah.
they always got to have it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, I wish, but honestly, I didn't want to put the effort into actually paying attention.
Yeah.
It's like,
I,
it's a puppy movie. It's not gonna be the most expected thing everybody's looking for. So
yeah. I would almost encourage you to watch some of the scenes again, but I don't know how well they work out of context.
yeah. Also, we've watched how many movies this week?
Yes, we did we binged Barbie this week. This
We
is our
did.
what, sixth in a row?
I don't know.
Too
A
many?
lot.
Yeah.
A
So
lot.
we're banking up episodes. So
Yeah.
this has
No, this
been
is the bottom of the hill for this week specifically.
yeah. Now next up we have the puppies,
The puppies. Yes.
who don't have anything to do here besides getting accidentally kidnapped.
Yeah.
I do think sequestering them in their own plot line is smart because it lets the other scenes focus on the sisters.
It is smart, but they don't have much of a plot
No.
in their end either.
No. They have less of a plot. They're almost the comedic relief that they can cut back to cut the tension.
I suppose, yeah.
But yeah, there's not much going on with them except for
Uh-huh.
Archibald the
Archibald the
Third.
Third. Yeah.
Yes. I was living for this pageant queen.
Mm-hmm.
She is fierce. She is gorgeous. She looks like a model. She is beautiful. This is our first ever drag queen character in one of these Barbie movies.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not shy about this. Like the way he is characterized is just so perfect. And he's also like sassy, but he has a heart of gold. Like just such a wonderful characterization.
Probably the only thing that's made the puppy plot line interesting.
Yeah. And such a great contrast to everything else going on.
Yeah. But it's a shame that he took over from Chelsea's moment.
Yeah, the performance scene is just a mess.
Yeah.
Again,
It's a
that
whole
ending.
thing.
But yeah, no, Archibald III. I mean, I've been catching up with season 15 of RuPaul's Drag Race, so I was in the right mentality for this. Now, of course, that will be old news by the time this episode comes out in 2 months, but yeah. And I don't know, it's a nice contrast to, because for some reason in US politics right now, one of the big issues is drag queens and kids. And it's like, if you have any familiarity with drag queens, they are the people you watch with your children because they will watch over your children and be like protective and nice and kind. This felt like a, even though this was definitely not on the creators' minds when they made it, it's like a nice contrast to a lot of the political narratives being thrown around right now.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Like Archibald, you're like, oh, you can leave the puppies with him, and he will watch out for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. He was fun,
Yeah.
and between him and Barbie and the sisters and the balance between all of the sisters, it just worked for me in a way I wasn't expecting going in. Even though, we've watched Amy Wolfram's movies, we know kind of what her strengths are. So yeah, I gave the characters a 4 out of 5. I think they are what makes the movie work in the scenes where it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I gave the characters a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, sort of standard score for you.
Standard skull. There was nothing wrong with the characters
Yeah,
negatively. Um, I just wasn't too enthused by the story.
yeah.
It's really the story.
Yeah, again, that story is like, if you aren't feeling the story, you're not gonna get those moments. And even I, like, by the time they got to the point where the camper van engine sputters and dies,
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, oh, not again. Can we not do this?
Yeah. And the story for me is also the weaker episodes of children's cartoons in general,
Yeah.
but they made a film about it.
Again, for me, it's that the character focus that pulls through, though. That makes it more interesting than it could have been.
I guess, but it also is, are these characters interesting enough for me?
Yeah, that is fair.
Because for me, a lot of the times it seems that Stacy and Chelsea are kind of the same
I think
for
this
all these
movie,
films in
yeah,
general.
I think this movie does a really good job distinguishing the sisters.
They do, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I can especially see that of like Perfect Christmas,
Yeah.
which again, this is for me what Perfect Christmas could have been, even to the extent of like there's no plot or stakes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, onto the animation. The teeth look slightly better.
Slightly better.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the Rainmaker influence or if it's something else, but this
Mm.
is the last, obviously the last Arc Productions Barbie movie, so we won't be seeing those teeth again, but
I mean, we might
maybe.
with a
I
different
hope not.
studio.
I hope not, because those teeth are. Ooh.
Yeah, they have been oof.
But yeah, I would say the rest of the movie is sort of similar in quality to Puppy Adventure.
I'd say that it's actually lesser quality than Puppy Adventure.
Okay.
There,
I
there's
thought
there's less polish. I think it's very dull.
that might be somewhat the influence of like switching studios partway through
Yeah,
production.
yeah. The lighting isn't very noticeable in this one.
Yeah, that's true. And that would be one of the later things added in.
Mm-hmm. The
So,
character models are okay.
yeah. Again, the teeth look better.
The teeth look better. The island
Not
looks
good,
like an
but
island.
better. Yeah. There are a lot of colors, and that's nice.
Sure.
And I think my favorite moments were there are different times where they're like to indicate where characters are in relation to each other or where they are on
Mhm.
this island. They actually like show the island as like a cardboard cutout.
Uh-huh.
Those were always fun.
Those were fun.
Anytime that showed up, I'm like, ooh, more of this.
Yeah, I'm also comparing this to like the last few films where we've had really good lighting, really good
Yeah,
character models and movements. And here it just seems like a big setback to what we've been getting.
yeah. I wonder if because quite a
Because
few
our
of the
last
last.
film was Starlight Adventure, and
Oh
my
yeah,
gosh, that
yeah.
film.
That is like top tier in terms of what they're doing with design and with lighting.
It's like it's night and day.
Yeah. And I wonder if because all of the Arc Productions movies, I think we've talked about the lighting
Hmm.
as being very good, as opposed to like the Rainmaker, where the lighting can be good or it can be very flat.
Depends on the day.
So yeah, I wonder if that is just something that Arc Productions excelled in that Rainmaker, when they took over production, wasn't paying as much attention to.
Yeah,
So yeah, I gave the animation a 3.5 out of 5. I think those cardboard cutout segments really helped it stand out a tiny bit more.
yeah. I also give it a 3.5, which is fine, but the last few were 3.8s.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is a bit high, but I'm being fair.
Yeah, I think it doesn't look bad.
It's not bad, but we know that it can be better.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
Yeah. So yeah, next up we have voice acting, and Erica Lindbeck once again playing Barbie.
Hmm.
And as I've said in other episodes, like her performance is different than Kelly Sheridan, but I really like her performance nonetheless.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, she has that Barbie feel, which I know you disagree with me on.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is still the same. She gives a really good performance, but I don't quite get her Barbie feel. Although she comes close in this film.
Yeah, this one gives her a lot more range to work with,
Hmm.
and especially like again that moment where she breaks down is one of the more interesting character moments that Barbie has ever gotten in any of these movies. And I think Erica Lindbeck plays that very well.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I wanted to also shout out Mark Oliver, who is serving Southern drag queen realness with his performance as Archibald III. Just,
And then everybody else did fine as well.
yeah. Mark Oliver did better than fine. He did wonderful. So, yeah, I gave the voice acting a 3.5 out of 5. I think, again, we have the little kid voices for the
Well, not as
puppies.
prevalent in this one than the last one.
Yeah, but it still it brings down my enjoyment a little bit. And then yeah, music is completely fine, does
Yeah.
its job, not much
Does it?
else.
Yeah.
There were moments where I was like, okay, I'm feeling the score a little bit more here, but it's missing the oomph,
It is missing its oomph.
and it's terrible that the best musical moment is when they play the song from Starlight Adventure over the montage of like after they get the camper van.
Okay.
They play oh, I forget the name of the song. I think I have it here. No, I do not. Um but it is, I think it's Let Your Hair Down from Starlight Adventure, the sort of upbeat song. And they just play it again over the montage here. That is the one musical moment that I'm like, oh yeah, this is pretty great, and then, oh wait a second, this is from a different movie.
Yeah. No, the music is passable. It does its job. It's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I give it a 3.3. There was a reason for the 0.3. I don't remember what it was. I watched the
Was there
film today, and I'm already forgetting why it did things.
was there a moment that just stood out as bad? Was it the final dance number?
No, it was not the final dance. I guess I was looking back at my other scores to try and figure out where this fit, and I felt like, 0.5 is too good for this.
Yeah. Well, my final score here is a 17.5 out of 25, which is a 70% or a 3.5 on our 5-star scale. Again, there are moments that I think work really well and character dynamics that are interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but the plot is very circular. The ending is just so bad.
Yeah. I gave it a 16.6, which is a 66%, and a 3.35 star rating. This might be my least favorite of the films so far.
Okay. Yeah, it's maybe less memorable than some of the, though. Yeah, I Thumbelina is still on my
Yeah, but I actually liked
naughty list.
Thumbelina.
Yeah, you liked Thumbelina more than I did.
I'd watch Princess Power over this.
You see, here's the thing though. Princess Power doesn't have anything interesting to say about the Barbie character.
No, but we have fun villain.
Yes, we did
That's
have a
about
fun
it. That's
villain.
about it.
But here we have Archibald the Third.
Yeah, I prefer the villain.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I've been watching Drag Race, so I am in the pocket for our first drag queen character.
I'm happy for you.
Why, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to follow us on social media. We're Binging Barbie Podcast on Instagram, at Binging Barbie on Twitter, and Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast on Letterboxd. We'll be back next week to talk about Barbie Video Game Hero, another classic genre.
Yeah, this one hopefully we'll have a guest for. It'll be interesting.
Bye.
Bye.